Hello, my friend. Welcome to another episode of the DMD podcast. Every so often, I get to have an amazing conversation with a guy who has an incredible story, a story of pain, of loss, of trauma, but of success, where their past hasn't dictated their future, but it has shaped them as men. And today, I get to have one of those conversations. I'm having a conversation today with Derrek Villagrana. Derrek is an incredible man. He's a soon-to-be husband, he's a father, and he is passionate about helping men overcome trauma, addiction, and loss so that they can step up to be the best men, best fathers, best husbands that they can be. You're going to listen to his story today. I'm going to tell you honestly, guys, no one listening to this is going to be like, oh, I wish that was my story. You're going to listen to this story and you're going to listen to how Derrek tells it in such a hopeful, optimistic, upbeat way. And you're going to be like, wait a second. You lost a child. You suffered addiction. You went to rehab. You started over. And you went through this and you're so positive. This is the man that we're talking to today. A man who can take all the things in his past, shape them to be positively influencing others in his future. I am excited for you to hear this conversation. Let's dive in. My conversation with Derrek Villagrana on this episode of the DMD podcast starts right now. Derrek, welcome to the Dads Making a Difference podcast, brother. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Cam. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. Anybody who comes recommended by a past guest, I'm always excited to hear a little bit about their story, why somebody recommended them. And I love those organic introductions. Like we use some other ways to get guests, but you came to me through Rob Decker, whose episode on the DMD podcast, we actually just re-released earlier this month because it was so powerful. And Rob reached out to me and said, hey, man, you need to meet Derrek. So he did an introduction. I'm glad he did.
Yes,
but
he
Derrek,
did.
Welcome to the show, man. I understand you have an incredible story. We'll dig into that. But I think where I love to start with you, and sometimes I end with this question, but I want to start with this question with you because of where we're heading. As a dad, right now, in your journey, as a husband in your journey, what is something you're leaning into that you're growing in or excited about diving into, something maybe a little bit challenging for you right now?
Well, I mean, so really, I wouldn't be where I'm at and have my family, the relationship with my kids and the relationship with my fiance. We're actually getting married in July, 2025. But if I didn't have my recovery, thank you. Yeah. If I didn't have my recovery and if I didn't have my faith in Jesus Christ, right. My story is pretty much molded by those two things. Everything that I've went through in my entire life and, whether that's self-inflicted or just circumstantial stuff, I always revert back to, my recovery and my belief in Jesus Christ and, as our Lord and Savior. So those two things are what I, constantly put at the forefront of my life, because without those two things, I wouldn't have the beautiful fiance that I have, the beautiful kids and everything that I have in my life now. I owe it all to those two things. And so I guess when you see, like challenging going forward and stuff, I mean, every day is a battle, Cam. I tell you that much, coming as a recovering addict and alcoholic, and you can only try to be better than you were the day before. Right. And so, it's an awesome feeling waking up without a hangover, no anxiety from what I did the night before or anything, and it's a blessing to say the least to be able to say where I'm at right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A powerful perspective. So you mentioned it and you alluded to like where you've been. So we're going to get to the fatherhood piece in a little bit, but I think your past impacts your present. And I think it impacts the way that we show up as dads. So for you growing up, what was it like for Derrek as a young man, as a youth growing up?
To be honest with you, man, I came from a, two-parent household. My parents were high school sweethearts. They had me at a pretty young age. My dad was 20, my mom was 19, born in Southern California. My parents wanted a better life than what they had. So they relocated from Southern California to Colorado Springs. Oh, wow. So my grandfather was born in Florence, Colorado, which is not too far from Colorado Springs. It's a little smaller town. It's very, very, everybody knows everybody type thing. So he wanted to change it up and join the Navy, and he happened to get stationed in San Diego. way back in the day. And so that's when he met my grandma, and they started that family out there. So my dad, my uncle, and my two aunts were born all out there. They were pretty much raised out there. My dad was involved in some not so good stuff. I mean, the area that we were living in, it was pretty much Southeast LA, and so 20 minutes outside of Compton. And, it really wasn't a good area to raise a family in, you know what I mean? So as it progressively getting worse, they moved out here, because my grandfather wanted to move back, and, he retired, all that stuff. So we ended up out here, and, I grew up with like I said, 2-parent household. I have a little sister. We had a pretty good life growing up. My parents did their best to, prevent me, just like any other parent does. They want what's best for their children, and they only know what they know and how to provide. That's the only way that they know how to provide. Right. So, they did everything they could. I grew up playing sports. I still play sports to this day. As you know, we'll touch on that. Me and Rob play softball together. We have a pretty good, powerful movement going on right now. But yeah, I played sports at a competitive, since at a little age, very competitively. I was an athlete, all that stuff. Graduated high school, did pretty well. You know what I mean? And then I would like to say, I joke around with everybody. It's, majority of people that work in my field of work and would have gone through and stuff, it started for them at a very early age, right? A lot of trauma, a lot of all that stuff. And for me, honestly, man, it didn't start till I was an adult, till I was pretty much on my own, and the decisions that I made impacted my life greatly, and so I had I had my oldest son when I was 21. His name is Gabriel. He's 14 now. He's in 8th grade. But yeah, I mean, I had a kid at a young age, and, I guess I didn't really make the best decisions, if you will. I mean, I always was there for him and provided for him and stuff. And, it was tough because me and his mom weren't together. You know what I mean? So that was also a very tough issue. And then, a couple of years later, I had my middle son, Elijah, with his mom. And, we off and on relationship, whatever, as far as parenting and stuff. And, I always was. I always drank, right? I always, was a big drinker, and, I mainly kept it socially. You know what I mean? It wasn't like an every night thing. I didn't go out every night and get all, messed up every single night, but it was definitely a social thing. And that's essentially what started my downfall, man, to be honest with you, was drinking at such a young age, and then narcotics got introduced to me at around age 26, so from, I want to say 26 to 33, I was a avid user of alcohol and narcotics, specifically cocaine. Those were my two things. And at that time, in between that time, I had met my ex-wife, and we had a child, and he ended up passing away. So that's where really my trauma and my mental health and everything took a serious decline, and that's really what kickstarted everything, I want to say. And right before he passed, man, I got a massive settlement from a car accident I was in. So I was in a car accident. I almost died. I got a massive chunk of money on a Wednesday, and then he passed away on Friday. So it was literally like the perfect storm of, my parents didn't know how to help me. Her parents didn't know how to help. I had all this money. It was just a whirlwind of just blur. You know what I mean? And so that's really what kind of started the downfall of what I, fell into, you know what I mean? And so then after that, a couple of times I tried to get help, and it didn't work out. I moved to Arizona thinking that would help, left my kids here with their moms, and I'd communicate with them and do all that, and then eventually I moved back because my oldest son's mom was, going through a bunch of stuff, and moved back, applied for custody, got full custody of Gabe, temporarily, and everything was going great. I was still using, not nearly as much, but I was still using. It was still an issue. And then, fast forward a little bit, me and my ex-wife decided to split. She left, went back to Arizona, all that stuff. And then 2 weeks after, I got evicted from my apartment I was in. So I was living out of my car. And 2 weeks after that, my son's mom passed away. So Gabe's mom, she passed away. And she actually, 32 years old, she drank herself to death. So, she died of cirrhosis of the liver. And pretty much, man, that is what, like, seeing her in a casket and seeing my son react to seeing her in a casket changed my life forever, Cam. Like, literally after that, after her funeral, 2 weeks later, I went and checked myself into rehab, and I haven't looked back. You know what I mean? And I built that foundation as far as faith and recovery at the forefront of my life to make sure I was able to be there for my children. You know what I mean? And mend that brokenness that they had. You know what I mean? Like I said, I mean, I was always there for them. I always, got them to school. Like it wasn't like one of these things where I just completely neglected my kids, but it was, I didn't give them my everything, if you will, and so now God blessed me with the second chance. And man, when I tell you, like if somebody would have told me 3 years ago that I was going to have the life that I have now, I would have told them they're full of it. There's no way that I would deserve that, and that I would put myself in a position to even have that. So like I said, I go to bed every day thanking the Lord that I have what I have, and I can't express the feeling of gratification that I have for the life that I live now.
Yeah. Well, man, like I appreciate you sharing that with me, because so often guys will just talk about what they're doing now. And I do want to spend most of our time talking about like the mission you're on and the incredible things that
Yeah,
you're
for
doing.
sure.
But I think it's powerful for us to hear, as guys who all come from different walks of life, of like what we've been through, and
Right.
how different things shape people into different ways. Can I unpack some of the stuff that you shared and just ask you a couple
Yeah.
questions about that? You
Yeah, of
mentioned
course.
you mentioned like you really started drinking more socially, and it got more of a thing when you were already an adult. But you mentioned just really quickly how you started drinking at a young age. When was that? What did that look like for you? So, and the reason I'm asking you, Derrek, is because for like I have a son who's gonna be a teenager very shortly. I have lots of close friends. There's lots of men in our community have young men they're raising in their homes, and your parents were both there, and like you were connected. And I think many times as a dad, we're like, I just want the best for my son, but we also
Of course.
understand our sons make their own decisions. And so for you, when did you make that decision? When did you start drinking socially? How old were you?
Well, I mean, my family's, I got a family full of alcoholics, right?
Okay.
On both sides, on my dad and my mom's side, right? I mean, even my parents, they drink every night, I mean, it'd be one or two, whatever, to help them go to bed, but there's still something there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I always grew up around it and stuff. And I'll never forget, I tried my first beer when I was like 13, and I was like, this is absolutely the worst thing I could ever imagine drinking. Like, why would you guys do this? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
just
the taste of
disgusting.
it, and just, I was like, this is foul. Like, how can you guys drink this? And like even in high school, man, like I worked in high school, right? So when all the people, all the kids were partying and stuff, my schoolmates and stuff, classmates, they're all out partying on the weekends. I worked at a restaurant called Old Chicago, where we
Mm.
didn't close on Friday and Saturday nights until 2 a.m.
Oh,
And I was a
wow.
bar back. So I was, while they're out partying and drinking and stuff, I'm in making money. So I didn't really get to experience that, like going to parties as a teenager. And, I mean, I can really count on one hand how many times I did that in high school, when you're supposed to, you hear stories of people. Yeah, in high school, I used to party all the time, and,
Yeah.
hang out with my friends. They lie, tell their parents one thing, they're at the movies and they're out of the house drinking with their friends. So
Yeah.
I never did that. And so I think, I don't want to say I was sheltered from it, but I think once I got a taste of it when I was able to, when I was older, I'm like, man, I could walk into a bar and, I made really good money at the time too. I think
Yeah.
that also played a factor in it too. And, I mean, I didn't really have any bills, and I just like going out and hanging out with my friends and going and drinking. And then it just progressively, hey, Derek's always down, hey, hit me up, let's go party, let's go drink. But like I said, it was never a fact of what my parents like neglected or did or didn't do. I tell everybody till this day, it was my choice. It's like that saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. Right.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
my parents tried their best to set me up for success by doing what they thought was right. But, at the end of the day, I made my own decisions.
Mm.
And it's a harsh reality. And it's like I said, they tried their best, but I made my own decisions.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it comes down to it.
And so now you're in your 20s. Gabriel's born, then Elijah's.
Mm-hmm. They're 2 years apart.
Oh man. And so then you're trying to balance that.
Yep.
What for you, like what were you doing at that point in time, like as a guy? Because I think about when I was at 27, like, man, 21, like I was not responsible enough to have a child at 21. And my first
Yes.
at 31. um, but for you, how did you manage that? And the reason I ask is because we're going to lead into this piece where you lose a child. and you
Right.
still have two other children to think about too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, you hit it right on the head, Cam. I wasn't responsible enough.
Mm.
I still was trying to figure out what I was doing with my life. And, I didn't even know, like, me and Gabe's mom were not doing well. And,
Yeah.
there's some stuff that happened, domestic violence stuff that happened, and she she got arrested for domestic violence. And, it was a crazy night. And, at that point, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do now, so I moved back in with my parents. They helped out with Gabe a lot. You know what I mean? And then I met Michaela, Elijah's mom, at the bar, and then we hit it off, and next thing you know, she's pregnant like 2 months later. You know what I mean? So it was just a whirlwind of just the perfect storm of stuff happening, right? And it was one of those things where it's like, well, I can't change anything. I've always had that mindset of like, well, you can't change what you've already done. You could just try to make the best of your situation, right? And so that's what I did. I tried to make the best of my situation. I'm a very optimistic type of person, right, Cam? So I'll take it as, I'm a half glass full versus a half glass empty. I'm like, well, at this time I haven't really gone through anything terrible. So I'm like, hey, this is what I got to deal with. I'm going to push through and do my best, right? I'm going to try to be there for as much as I can, as much as they would allow me to. You know what I mean? I didn't get to that point until after losing my son that I had that mindset of nothing can be worse than what I've already gone through. Right. So I've always had good perspective,
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I've had my bad times, my anxiety riddled, my depression riddled, my, all that stuff, being in rehab and stuff. But at the end of the day, I was always like, you know what, at least it wasn't, I've been through worse. If I can get through what I went through losing my child, I can get through anything. You know what I mean? And I still keep that. I'll have bad days just like everybody else, and I have the ability to take a step back and take a deep breath, and it's okay. You'll make it. You'll be okay. You know what I mean?
Man, you say you're a glass half full guy, Derek,
Yeah.
but you're the way you're talking, you're a guy who's like, man, I got a glass. Like like everything is optimistic.
Yeah.
Like you share the timeline of the things that have happened in your life and the optimism at which you still talk about them. Like so many people will dwell on it and you're like, no, like this impacted me, but it took me here. And then this happened and it took me to the next step. And all of it came to pass because I'm meant to be where I am right now.
Exactly. And man, it's funny you bring that up, Cam. I just got chilled, man. When I first started dating my fiance, Lexi, so it's a crazy story how we met, man. I got to tell you this. So we went to the same elementary, middle, and high school together,
Okay.
right? Just 2 years apart. So I'm '07. I graduated in '07. She graduated in '09. So growing up in high school and stuff, like right when I graduated, she was, her parents were pretty well off. They owned a HVAC company, heating and HVAC company. And so they had a pretty big house. And she would have parties at her house. So when I turned 18 after high school, I'm like, hey, I got a better job. So I wasn't working nights. So I'm like, hey, I can go have a social life now.
Yeah.
Well, I would go over to her house and hang out, and we wouldn't even drink. We would just, hang out. And, there's probably about 15, 20 of us. And I had mutual friends that we had mutual friends together. Right. So we go over there and hang out. Well, long story short, man, fast forward about 13 years. I play slow pitch softball and I play pretty competitively, and I play tournaments on Saturdays and stuff. And she just so happened to be, I was like maybe a month or two fresh out of rehab. And, softball was always a big trigger for me. That's where I went to drink and use and just get away from everything, right? I was playing like 4 or 5 nights a week, playing every weekend. I was running from my responsibilities. Well, it was very triggering for me. I had a deep battle in my head. Like, do I go back to softball, right? Do I go back and do all that? Well, come to find out, I end up, going out to the field. She's there, and we reconnect, and we hang out that night, and we've been together ever since, man.
That's
It's
amazing.
wild. It's wild. So going, when we first started dating and stuff, when she was unpacking everything, she always would ask me like, do you regret doing anything you did? Or if you could change anything, what would you change? And I always told her I wouldn't change anything because it got me to where I'm at. It got me to be able to meet, to reconnect with you, and she played a big part in helping me go through a custody battle with Elijah and get 50-50 of him. You know what I mean? So, like I said, everything that I've gone through in my life, I take it as a learning experience, and I'm thankful because all the stuff that I've gone through, I shouldn't even be here now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and now that I am, like I said, God bless me with this second chance. I'm going to make the most of it, and I'm going to try to help as many people as I can and reach as many people as I can to be that light in somebody's darkness, because I didn't have that when I was going through all my stuff towards the end there. You know what I mean? Right before I checked into rehab, I didn't have anybody that was, reaching out to me. Hey man, are you doing okay? Like none of that. I had to do it all on my own. And I think that is what it was part of God's plan the whole time, obviously. But, he put me through all that to put me where I'm at now. So it's crazy how you say that, because that's exactly how I view my life now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have no problem sharing my story and telling people. And, when I tell people, they're like, you see their eyes just like, wow, dude, and it's not to like brag or anything or to try to get, sympathy. It's to, hey, if my story reaches somebody, they can reach out to me and I'll help them, especially men, because I mean, as men, we have this stigma of, we have to be strong. We can't talk about our feelings. We can't do all that. And I think that is what really was the root issue of my depression and my anxiety and my usage, was because of losing my son. You know what I mean? And I didn't handle that okay. I just kept everything bottled up and made sure that my kids were okay and that my ex-wife was okay and my family was okay. Nobody asked if I was okay. You know what I mean? Like, hey, are you doing okay? Like, I was always went, hey, what can I get for you? Let's go do this. Let's get out of this. And at night, dude, I'd cry myself to sleep. You know what I mean? Once everybody else was asleep and I made sure everybody else was good, I'd cry myself to sleep, man. Because, and like I said, I thought it was a macho thing, like, oh, just toughen up, suck it up, it'll be fine. When all actuality, man, you got to get that stuff out, because over time it's just like a bomb that's just ticking inside of you, until one day it's just going to explode, and you don't know when it's gonna do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so true. I think all guys to some extent have felt that pressure of either I'm not doing my part, I'm letting others down, and they have this internal dialogue in their head where they feel like a pretender a little bit. They feel like people think I got this put together. I feel it, man. Like people think I got this put together, and on the inside, it's like I haven't done this. I'm not doing this. My family
It's
did this.
chaos.
It's chaos, right? It's chaos.
Yes.
But I appreciate you sharing that, because in that story and your perspective on like how that trauma of losing your child impacted you so dramatically. Because as you share that, and I want to shift into what you're doing now, but when you share your story, and I work with youth often, and I was
Yeah.
talking to a young man this week. I said, the reason I'm telling you is not because I think I know better, but it's my hope that by sharing our story, I can help you write your next chapter, because I don't want it to repeat a story that's already been written by somebody else. So let's make it unique. Let's make it your own. And I'm going to share
Right.
my story with you so that you don't repeat it. That's all I'm doing. I'm not telling you what to do,
Right.
what not to do. You can process through it yourself. And here we go. And when you're sharing your story, it doesn't feel like a sensationalized version of this past reality. It's like, no, this has shaped me to who I am. And the reason I'm sharing it is because look where I'm at, and here's the work we're doing now. So I appreciate
Amen. That's
I
that's
appreciate you,
exactly
man.
what it is. I use my story to put stuff into perspective for other people, right?
Oh yeah, I
Especially
love
the
that.
kids that I work with. That's what I do for work. So I mentor troubled youth, right? I
Mhm.
work for a company, and what we do is we partner with the justice system, right? So for the El Paso County court system, we partner with them, and the judges will, get a case of some child, some kid, whatever. Either he got expelled from school for something, or he got caught, by the police or something. Whatever happened, it caused him to get in front of that judge. He had to, a lot of times the judge will assign a mentor. Like, hey, you have to have a mentor. It's like a Big Brother program. That's kind of what the
Yeah.
easiest way to describe it, right?
Cool.
And so it's awesome, man, because I get to go pick up these kids and that have a troubled past, but they're still young, so I can do that preventative maintenance on them to try to help them get a different perspective on their life and to try to alter their path to put them on the right path, so they can use my experiences on, because man, anything that these kids have gone through, I've done, right? So it's like it's an easy connection with these kids, because they see me and they see that it's so easy that I can talk to them so easy. Like, hey man, I'm here for you. I'm here to try to help guide you and change what you're doing, because obviously the way that you're going right now is not working. And so me as a person and as a professional, I don't want to see you have to go through that. So let's, think about some things that we can do to alter that, to change your mindset, or to, whatever, to get you on that right path that you need to be on to be successful. And, basically essentially learn from my mistakes, and from their mistakes, and go on the right path, try to live a successful life.
It's good work. Like, and it's such meaningful work because it has such an impact on those young
Oh,
men. And
man,
man,
I get chills just thinking about it. Like, just the impact, like to see the stuff change. When they have court dates and you go in there and the judge is happy with all the progress they've made, and just to see it on their face, like, hey, I'm done. That's one of the first things I ask them, Cam. When they get to me, I'm like, "Are you done?" And
yeah,
they're like, "Done what?" And I'm like, "Are you done? Are you done living this life that you're living?" I have kids that are involved in gangs. I have kids that are involved in drug dealing. I have kids that are involved in all this different stuff, right? And that's the first thing I ask them. And I can genuinely tell on their face if they're done or not. It's like that saying, man, you can't BS a BSer, right?
yeah.
You're not going to pull one over my eyes. I've been there, done that. You're not going to pull one over on me. So if you're like, yeah, man, I'm done. And it's like, come on, man. Accountability. I try to teach these kids accountability perspective, man. If you mess up, that's totally fine. You own up to it. You sincerely own up to it and try to move forward. It's all about, the what do they say? The rear view mirror is smaller than the windshield for a reason, because you don't be looking back and seeing, what your stuff is. You got to look forward and move forward, and the thing is, man, these kids are so young, and it's like, I'm trying my best to, get them on the right path. So they have, a lot of them are like, my life's over. I got all these charges. I'm like, dude, you're 15 years old.
Yeah.
You have your whole life to live ahead of you. You know, let's get through this together, fix this, change the stuff that caused you to get here, and move forward. And I tell them, I'm like, hey, even if you get dropped from my caseload, you complete your thing, I'm still there for you. You still have my number. We still can be in contact. Like, these kids just need stability. And I think a lot of it is, a lot of my kids, they don't have their dads around, so
Mhm.
it's from a single mom household. They got a lot of trauma with their dads. And so working in this type of environment, I've been there since March. I've been working, with these kids since March, and, being around them and everything has taught me so much more, as like how to be a father myself with my own kids, how to have patience, how to have, structure, and how to try to do, and it just makes me a better person dealing with these kids, because I see a lot of, the path that they're going down, it could end up where I was. And so if I can alter that a little bit and get them on that right path so they don't have to go through all that BS that I went through, then I win. You know what I mean? That's a win for me.
How do they respond? Like, how do the young men that you're working with, how do they respond to like that push?
You know what? I've been blessed with the clients that I have, because they're all like doing very well. They're all exceeding. They're all, getting probation instead of having to go back to jail. But they all want to, because like I said, my biggest focus is perspective. I do a lot of what's called motivational interviewing, right?
Mm.
I actually have a bunch of different certifications through the state of Colorado. So I'm a certified recovery coach. I have my relapse prevention, motivational interviewing, suicide prevention, bloodborne pathogen, like all these different certifications that I had to go through classes for to get. And my favorite one, man, that I use all the time is motivational interviewing. It's holding these kids accountable. Like, okay, well, you say you want to do this, you say you don't want to be in this courtroom no more, but yet you're still smoking weed and you're still doing all this stuff. Like, so that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So putting the accountability on these kids at such a young age, I've been blessed with the ones that I have. They've been very, very receptive to it. Right? There's not much pushback, because they trust me. I earn their trust, and I'm just genuine, man. I don't go in there, I don't BS anything. I tell them straight up, you will get the same amount of energy from me that you put into this. So
Mm.
if you put in, if you're like, hey, I want to do all these classes, I want to do this, I want to do that, cool, bro, let's go. I'll take you, I'll sign you up, I'll do this. If you're like, I don't really want to go do that, man. Okay, cool. Then I give them what they give into it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And like I said, it's just these kids nowadays, bro. It's all like social media stuff, influence, and it's all this, what they see. So I try to be that buffer for that. Like, hey, all that stuff you see on the internet, that's not real. All that
Yep.
stuff is all fake. The realness is right here. I've
Yeah.
been through it all. Anything you and these kids, like I said, I get lucky because they just connect with me and they just open up to me. They see the tattoos, they see the earrings, they see all that stuff, and they're like, okay, this guy's cool. He's not some stuff. Like he looks like he's been through some stuff. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I guess it's such an amazing feeling, man. Just seeing and being in that courtroom and seeing the kid having 2 or 3 years hanging over juvenile life hanging over his head. You know what, Carl, you've done so good. I'm going to give you probation. And it's like, man, like it's a feeling I can't explain, bro. That saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
And that is what I do for work is,
Right.
you know what I mean? I never, like I said, Cam, I never would have imagined 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, that I would be where I'm at right now and talking to somebody like you and, sharing my story and just trying to help people, man. It's an amazing feeling. And like I said, I owe it all to God,
Yeah. Amazing. You mentioned a couple things when you were talking, and it's clear how passionate you are for this, but you mentioned trust, about connection, about these
Mhm.
pieces, and authenticity just permeates through everything that you've said. And I think for a lot of us, it's hard to show up authentically, but you show up authentically everywhere. Like your story, and we talked before a couple weeks ago on the phone, and just like
Yeah.
the way you show up, like you're showing up for your family, you're showing up for these youth, but you also show up for men in a lot of different ways, and men who have struggled with very similar things that you have. What does that
Right.
look like? And you can mention Rob. He might be listening to this, he might not, but the people
Yeah.
who've been following the podcast know that I love speaking to dads who are making a difference. And you
Right.
are, and you clearly are. So what's some of the other work that you're working on right now?
So, me and Rob's founded Rise as Lions. It's surrounded around men's mental health and addiction and recovery and stuff. And, he has a softball team. He created a softball team called the Recovery Rebels. Now, funny story, man. I gotta share this with you. It's insane how me and Rob got connected and all this stuff. So we're playing on a Friday night, and it was probably about 2 months before I was, decided to go to rehab and stuff. So,
Mm.
I was really drinking. I was really in my bad spot. I've been up for like 3 days, man. It was terrible. Well, Rob's first Recovery Rebels team was a co-ed team. And so my team, who I was playing with, was playing against Rob and the Recovery Rebels. And it's crazy because me and Rob had like connected somehow on Facebook. I think he added me or I added him or something, like whatever. Well, we were friends on Facebook, and I used to, every day it's an awesome motivational post about him going on a run or doing CrossFit or, working out in his garage. And it was crazy, man. I was playing first base. Rob comes up to bat and he hits a monster home run. And as he's rounding first base, I was like, yeah, it's all that CrossFit and lifting you do. And he just started laughing, and we start going back and forth, just kind of joking around with each other. Well, later on in the game, he gets on first base, and I'm probably like 30, 40 feet away from him. And he said he could smell the alcohol on me, like
Oh,
that
wow.
far away.
Yeah.
And, and so anyway, that was our first interaction. And then when I made a post on social media announcing that I was going to go away, right? That I was going to rehab, that I was going to get help, all that stuff. And he was the first person to reach out to me and sent me a message on Facebook. Didn't even know the guy like that, nothing. He sends me this long message. Hey, bro, congrats on, getting the help you need. I'm here for you, whatever you need. Here's my phone number. Give me a call. So I called him in, and we talked on the phone for quite some time. And then, when I was going away, because they take your phone, when I was the rehab facility I stayed in, it was a 30-day inpatient. So you ate 3 meals a day there, you stayed there with the therapy classes, like all that stuff, man. It was, so they take your phone away from you. So there's no distractions, which is totally fine. I needed the reset. And right before I went in, he called me and he left me a voicemail, and he was praying for me over the phone. And he told me at the end of that voicemail, man, I'm getting chills right now. This is insane. He goes, you are going to help so many people, and you don't even know it yet. He's like, God's telling me that you're the one. You know what I mean? And so I get out of rehab. Everything's great. And I started working out with him, and we got closer and closer and closer. And now we built this thing there's a men's team, a veterans team, and a co-ed team. And, our co-ed team is, we win we win the league every season. We got championship rings. I got a whole thing full of championship rings over there. You know what I mean, from the team, and it's just we create that safe space for people, right? So our veterans team is ran by John De La Cruz, a friend of mine, great guy. He's a military background. So we created that safe space for the veterans because military is so prominent here in Colorado Springs. There's like 4 different bases, right? It's huge. It's insane. And so there was a lot of PTSD, a lot of all that stuff. And so we wanted to create that safe space for those type of people have their own. And then our COA team is based around like supporters of mental health, right? So supporters of recovery, supporters of mental health, like, hey, if you struggle from mental health, come on out, it could be anybody. They don't necessarily have to be in recovery, but I mean, we just ask them to not drink while they're playing because we play at it's called Skyview Sports Complex, and they have 4 fields and they have a big bar in the middle where you can get food and drinks and stuff. So it's always around, right? But yeah, we just ask them to not drink while they're playing with us, or they have a Rebels jersey on, and then our men's team. That's our pride and joy. You know what I mean? That's our baby. That's mine and Rob's baby. We create jerseys. We made jerseys for the team. We, mind you, we raise money. We try to find sponsors and all this stuff to pay for everything. So that way, people all they have to do is worry about just coming out and playing and having that camaraderie, being around people. And you don't know how many times we've talked. People have been crying, after the games because they're finally able to get something out that they weren't able to talk about to anybody. Me and Rob have created that safe space with this group of men that we have. And man, I tell you what, I look forward to every Sunday. Well, it's off season now because it's snowing and stuff here, but it's such an awesome thing to be a part of. We've had the news come out and do segments on us, and we're trying to just spread the word of that safe space that we've created for people, because AA and NA is not for everybody, right? And I personally go to NA, to Narcotics Anonymous. I just recently started going actually, and it's given me a different perspective on things. And I told Rob's, as Rob's very, very vocal on him not being an AA or an NA guy, and so he goes, hey, go for it, dude. He's like, that way you can connect with those type of people if they want to come to us, So it's just one of those things, man, where it's just, it's a blessing to be able to help these men and, talk them off the ledge, or like I said, just give them a hug, and say, hey, it's okay, man. Like we're all here for you. Like, don't hesitate to call, and that's the vision I had. And that's the vision that Rob had. And we just came together, and it's so magical, man. Like in the last 2.5 years, he's one of my best friends, man. Like, he's going to be one of my groomsmen in my wedding. Like, I owe everything I have to that man. You know what I mean? He saw something in me that I didn't even know that I had in me, and he just trusted the process, and I just stuck with him and stuck with him and stuck with him. And, all the meetings we go to, different places to try to get sponsorship, and different, we've been on some different shows together and stuff. And it's just like, we're in this because we want to create a safe space for everybody. But, the main focus is men, and because that's, you don't hear about that. You don't hear about men's mental health. You don't hear about anything. All you hear is, another one committed suicide. We're trying to prevent that from happening. The stresses of life and kids and all that stuff, and the pressure we put on ourselves is like no other pressure that anybody else could put on us, and so we're just trying to create that little, hey man, come out and play softball for a few hours, get a little escape, get a little release, come give us a hug, come, take some pictures, whatever, you know what I mean? Have some fun. And plus it's active, it helps out with, staying fit, and, it's a good time. We're competitive, man. We win a lot. It's awesome, So you combine the winning aspect and the camaraderie, there's no better combination, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it. It sounds like that connection has been so powerful both for both you and Rob. And I know for
Yes.
men who have struggled with addiction, men who've struggled with trauma, that it has come down to some type of meaningful connection, whether that's somebody local there in Colorado Springs or somebody online through social media that Rob
Mm-hmm.
first connected with you. And so there might be a man right now listening to this who might live hundreds of miles away from you, and he's in a spot right now where he is like, I have no one I can connect with. If somebody wants to connect with you and just say, hey man, I heard you on the Dad's Making Difference podcast, you have an incredible story, I just needed to reach out to someone, where can they connect with you?
They can reach out to me on Facebook at Derrek Villagrana. You can email me Derrek Villagrana at gmail.com. I don't know if you want to put it up there to how to spell my last name.
Yeah, we'll put it in the
And my
show notes
first
for
name.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just Derrek Villagrana at gmail.com. Derrek Villagrana on Facebook, man. And that's the biggest way I connect with people, right?
Yeah.
Is Facebook and stuff. And I'm very vocal on there, like, hey, you're not alone. You know what I mean? There's other people out there that have gone through what you're going through and that want to be there to help you. It's all about making that first step of saying, I'm going to reach out to that person, or I'm going to look for help. There's nothing more manly than getting everything all situated in your mind and your heart so you can take care of your family. That whole putting it down and burying it, that's not cool anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not in the 50s anymore. We're not in that, hard-nosed era. It's okay to have feelings, and it's okay to reach out to people to look for help, man, because that's what I had to cry for help. And I found the rehab, I did all that stuff, I took the proper steps, man. It's all about taking that first step. There's no more suffering in silence no more.
Yeah.
I'm vocal about that. I'm very vocal about that. I always post, make a post at least once a week. Hey, if anybody's struggling with anything, feel free to reach out. I'm here for you. Even if it's just a phone call, you call me to listen. I'll shut up for an hour. You want to vent everything to me. As long as that prevents you from going down that deep, dark path that I went down, then it's a win for both of us. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's providing that cushion, that safe space, and that comfort to people, man. That's my passion. And, I don't see it stopping anytime soon. You know what I mean? I'm putting myself in a position to be able to help so many people, and like I said, it's not for clout. It's not for anything. It's because I know what it's like to not have the help, So if you're out there struggling, feel free to reach out to somebody, feel free to reach out to me, a counselor, whoever, man. You got to get help. Okay. You're not alone in this. Whoever's out there listening, struggling, you're not alone. You'll be all right. Okay. One step at a time.
Powerful stuff, man. Derrek, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for jumping on here with me today and having this conversation. Man, thank you
Of
so
course, Cam.
much.
Thanks for having me, man. This is awesome. And, hopefully we can do it again sometime. Maybe me and Rob could jump on one with you. You know what I mean?
I love it. A duel. I'm have both of you guys. I don't know if I'd get like a word in, but I would be very entertained. You guys are awesome. Derrek,
Yeah.
I appreciate you, man. I wish you all the best as we head into the
Cam,
holidays
thank
with
you
you and
so
your
much.
family, man.
Yeah, you as well, Cam. Thank you so much, man. Have a blessed holiday.
Thank you.